Okay, Richard, we're under your truck. I gotta drop the exhaust to get to that transmission cover to see what the heck is banging in there. And I already checked the EGR. I already checked the ignition control mod. I mean the ignition coil. We put a new one in. So you already know that. And I was taking off your filter. There's your filter. Let's see. It's kind of dark. Let's see if I can brighten it up. It's as bright as I could get it before it looks distorted. But I took the filter off, and I'm gonna give you a zoom in close look at your O-rings. This end of the filter was already loose. So what you're doing is sucking in air bubbles through that side as it's being pumped to the front. This side was tight. But if you can look as I get it close, these O-rings are thrashed. There's the O-ring there. Those O-rings are no good, so I'm going to pop those off and put brand new O-rings there. But I do recommend that we change the fuel filter. That doesn't look like it's ever been changed. It's pretty dirty. I don't know if it's from all the traveling or maybe you did change it before and it's just gotten... But we obviously see that there's a lot of miles been put on this truck. And if the fuel filter was changed, those O-rings should have been brand new. So that's why I'm assuming that that's an old fuel filter. So I'm going to recommend that we change that. That'll give it a little more better performance. And maybe that's our problem with black fuel. But what I'm going to do is pull those O-rings off right now and stick my fuel pressure gauge in there. There was actually another part of the video that I was letting you know what we were going to do before I did it. It was going to be set up. But when I grabbed the phone, I accidentally turned it off. So I'm going to have to hook up a couple of videos together. So let me hook up the fuel pressure gauge and drop this exhaust, and I'll show you what our outcome is. Okay, now we got the fuel pressure gauge. While I was down here, I don't know why, but my hand went this way. Look what I found. This is loose, and I'm twisting it. This is for your speedometer cable. So I just want to let you see that before I mess with it. And we're going to go ahead and tighten that. So now it's nice and tight. I don't want to do it too hard. There's a seal right here. And if that seal gets pinched, it'll start leaking. And here's your transmission mount. As you can see, it looks pretty okay. When you were doing the reverse and drive, I mean, it's wet. There's a leak somewhere, but it's not broken. So that's not the clanging. So next I'm going to take off the exhaust flange bolts on both sides, and I'm going to have to drop the exhaust down a little bit so that I can scoop that pan out of there. So let me go ahead and get that done. Okay, those exhaust bolts are not budging, and I don't want to try to force them because if they snap off, we are in trouble. So I did manage to get the cover down. Let's see the cover loose right here. We don't got a real good clear shot, but we do have one at the corner, which is right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that flywheel with a crowbar to see what we see. I'm just going to spin it around, and see if we see any cracks in it. If we see cracks, it'll be coming out all the way to here. So let me go grab a crowbar. Okay, got my crowbar. This part I'm going to put on video, Richard, because I want you to see what I see. So, try to get in like so. Hopefully the video stays right. It's just hard to get a shot of it while I'll tell you what, I'll spin it. There it is. I'll spin it and look for the crack. If there's a crack, I can obviously already move it, and you can see the torque converter and the flywheel moving together. It's hard to do this with one hand, so I'm going to pause the camera and I'm going to turn it, and then when I do see something, I'll turn the camera back on so I can show you. Okay, I turned it about 2 inches before I realized I should mark it to know how far I've gone around. So you can see those 2 teeth right there, I marked it with silver paint pen. And now I'm going to turn it and go from there. Okay, Richard, I spun it all the way around. There is no cracks, so it's not the flywheel. I'm gonna show you right now. Maybe I can get my top light out. But as I was turning it, I felt this. I'm gonna see if I can get a closer look at it. That sound. What that is your torque converter is shot. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I better know what that is. That is not the torque converter, because the torque converter is turning with the flywheel. Okay, now I'm going to show you what's happening. The torque converter is one with the flywheel. So it's the flywheel that's moving, and I shall show you on the whiteboard. Okay, I got it all ready. I know what the knocking noise solved for the whatever 88 to 95 Suburban Tahoes, whatever they have out that's Chevy full-size trucks. The rattling knocking noise solved. I was under this old Suburban. This is a 1989 GMC Saburban. We were getting the rattling, knocking noise, and couldn't figure out what it is. So I got under there to see if it was the flex plate, and you can see here's the flex plate here. Torque converter. Those are the little studs right here that mount the flex plate to. These are the bolts that go to the flex plate to the torque converter. And then you also got the flex plate, and then these are the bolts that go from the flex plate to the crankshaft of the block. Just so you can get a better far away look at it. This is the flywheel from the front view, if you were to have the tranny out. This is the crankshaft of the engine once this flex plate is off. Now, explanation. The rattling knocking noise. What I did was I put 2 lines on 2 teeth so that I could rotate the flex plate and see if the flex plate itself was cracked, and it was not. I turned it all the way around and flex plate was not cracked. And keep in mind, I wasn't able to take the cover completely down. This is just from what I saw on, and you can also see it on my video to check my hypothesis. And I was spinning the flex plate all the way around with these 2 teeth marks that were painted silver. So once I got them all the way around rotated and I got the silver teeth marks back to where I had it, which is right here too, the torque converter turned with it. And you can see that when you're turning it with a crowbar, the flex plate has a little give. I didn't see no movement between these bolts. But as you can see, when I was showing you, when I was rocking that torque converter up and down like that, it shouldn't do that, because if the engine's not rotating, you shouldn't have no play going back and forth. So what happened was the crankshaft bolts got loose and came undone, and you said you've been driving that for a number of months like that. And well, now what's happened is the transmission has to be dropped for those crankshaft bolts to be retightened. The only thing is, you drove it so long, and here's these 6 crankshaft bolts. You drove it so long, these are all tight. These are all loose. But you drove it so long, now the crankshaft holes where the bolts go are oblong like this, which is causing that back and forth play. You can even hear it in the flex plate. But if you did it for a month, I can guarantee that that crank is ruined right there. So it's drive it till it breaks or till it doesn't work no more, or have a technician pull the transmission out and let him know what my hypothesis was, what to keep an eye out for, and to see how far the damage is. That's what the big thing is about this, is how far did the damage go. You said you've been hearing it for about, you got it, and then 6 months later you started hearing it, and then after a number of miles that you've been driving it, you've just been dealing with it. And if once you heard a knocking noise and rattling noise that bad, you should immediately stop driving the vehicle, because a knocking noise that bad means severe something damage. I'm not saying it was engine damage or transmission damage, but something is really wrong, and it should have been checked out immediately. So what I did was just pull the access cover. And if you guys want to try this on your vehicles to see what's going on, see if the flywheel spins together with the torque converter. If it does and you don't see no movement here and here, grab it by your hand and go back and forth to see if it's free from the crankshaft. And that's how you'll figure out if the rattling, knocking noise is either the crankshaft bolts that are loose or the torque converter bolts are loose. And you'll also be able to tell if the torque converter bolts are loose is that you'll see a little movement between the flywheel and the torque converter. But I saw movement between the flywheel and the crankshaft. So that's how I figured that out. And that's my hypothesis. So that's going to be, yeah, that's too bad. This car is not safe to drive all the way to New Mexico, being that you're here in Bakersfield. So I'm going to go on doing the fuel pressure test. Oh, and I also wanted to tell you my hypothesis about why the engine's shutting down. The passenger side, we'll pretend we're looking through the block at the passenger side. This will be where the starter is. Right here is a knock sensor. The knock sensor wants to advance or retard your timing if it starts to hear pinging or knocking. If you're getting this knocking, this knock sensor is picking it up, and it's telling the I don't know which way it goes, either advance or retard, but it's going so far to try to correct that knocking noise, thinking it's pinging in the cylinder, it's shutting down your engine. So it's a big problem. I definitely don't recommend you take this vehicle to Mexico, not the way it is. But, it is what it is, and that's what I got figured out. So we're going to still continue to do the fuel pressure test and make sure your fuel pump is good. We went ahead and tightened your speedometer cable. Like I said, the back of that fuel filter was loose, so it was sucking in air through there, so that could have been a problem also. But that fuel filter does look old, and I do recommend replacing it. And also, I'm going to go ahead and put that cover back on because I can't do the job here. It has to be taken to a shop. And because they're going to drop out the drive line, the transmission. It's got to be up in the air for you to be able to see everything properly, especially the threaded holes inside your crankshaft. And so let's continue with the fuel pressure test, and we'll make sure that your fuel pump's good. Oh, and just reference, I did find the connector. If your ICM was bad, you disconnect the connector and it starts right away. It's an ICM problem because you're taking the computer out of the loop, which is not igniting the ICM. it'll allow it to get power from another source, which I think it's the ignition coil. I'm not sure, but so yeah, that would be a good test on your vehicle, the GMC Suburban 1989 5.7 liter. This is where you'll find it, next to the power booster. And let's continue with the fuel pressure test and go from there. Okay, what I'm going to do is energize the fuel pump. I'm gonna have to ignore that call until I get my video done. Now I'm gonna go down there and see what the fuel pressure is. Wow, it's at 0 still. I can see it from here. Maybe I ought to click it one more time. Oh, that's bad. So you can hear the rattling noise as it's running. So I'm gonna get down there and see what the fuel pressure check is. Okay, I'm gonna turn it off real quick, so that we can go down there and see it close up where it's at. Okay, also, this is what I'm seeing. Fuel pump ending pressure. I don't want to get down here with the engine running, but I want to try, but I want to put my safety let's see if I can tilt this camera.